The lights flickered again in the control room of Nexus Prime. Commander Jaewon stared at the warning screens that covered every wall around him. Red alerts blinked everywhere. The massive space station shook as another system failed somewhere deep inside its metal structure. "Sir, we lost another power grid in Section 7, reported Communications Officer Minho from his station. His voice was tight with worry. "That makes 12 major failures in the last 6 hours. Jaewon rubbed his tired eyes. He had been awake for 36 hours straight, watching his station fall apart piece by piece. Nexus Prime was the pride of the Galactic Coalition. It housed 50,000 beings from 12 different worlds. Scientists, diplomats, traders, and their families all lived and worked on this giant structure that floated in space between 3 star systems. Now it was dying. The trouble started 3 days ago during what should have been a routine hyperspace jump. The station was moving to a new position to study a strange energy field that scientists had discovered. Everything seemed normal until they dropped back into regular space. Then the problems began. First, the quantum processors that controlled. The station's main computer started making mistakes. Simple calculations came out wrong. Navigation systems pointed in the wrong directions. Then the bio-neural networks that managed life support began to shut down randomly. Now, the worst problem of all was growing larger every hour. The exotic matter containment fields were becoming unstable. These fields held the dangerous energy that powered the entire station. If they failed completely, the explosion would destroy everything and everyone aboard. Chief Science Officer Yoonji walked over to Jaewon's command chair. Her face looked grim. "The Valtharian engineers just finished their analysis," she said quietly. "They say the damage is too extensive to repair with normal methods." Jaewon felt his heart sink. The Valtharians were known throughout the galaxy as the best engineers. Their crystal-based technology was so advanced that other species could barely understand how it worked. If they said something was impossible to fix, it usually was. "What about the Keth repair teams?" Jaewon asked, though he already suspected. The answer: "They agree with the Valtharians," Yoonji replied. "The Keth say their precision tools cannot handle damage this severe. Even the Morphids with their analytical computers say we need to evacuate the station." The word evacuation made everyone in the control room look up from their work. Evacuating 50,000 people from a space station was not a simple task. It required hundreds of transport ships working for weeks. They did not have weeks. The containment fields would fail in days, maybe hours. "Sir," Minho called from his station, "I have an idea, but you might think it is crazy." Jaewon turned to face the young communications officer. "At this point, I will listen to any idea. What do you have in mind?" Minho looked nervous. "What about asking the humans for help?" The control room fell silent. Several officers exchanged glances. Yoonji shook her head slowly. "The humans are barely out of their home system," she said. "They still use metal ships and chemical rockets. Their most advanced computers are less powerful than our personal communication devices. What could they possibly do that our best engineers cannot?" Minho stood up from his station. "I know it sounds strange, but I have been reading reports about human technology. They approach problems differently than we do. Where we use elegant solutions, they use practical ones. Where we build things to be perfect, they build things to work under any conditions." "That is exactly the problem," Yoonji argued. "Their technology is primitive and crude. We need sophisticated solutions for sophisticated problems." Jaewon listened to the debate while watching the status screens. Another containment field generator had just gone offline. They were running out of time and options. "Tell me more about these human approaches," he said to Minho. Minho pulled up files on his screen. 6 months ago, the human colony on Kepler 7 had a problem with their atmospheric processors. The machines that cleaned their air stopped working because of dust storms. Coalition engineers said they would need to build completely new facilities with better filtration systems. The project would take 2 years and cost millions of credits. "What did the humans do?" Jaewon asked. They put cloth filters on the intake, vents, and added mechanical brushes that clean themselves, Minho explained. It took them 3 days and cost almost nothing. The system has been working perfectly ever since. Yunji frowned. That is exactly my point. They use crude solutions for simple problems. This is not a simple problem. But what if simple solutions work better? Minho asked. I have been studying their repair techniques. Humans do not try to fix everything at once. They identify the core problem and solve that first. Then they add backup systems in case their first solution fails. Another alarm sounded. This time it was from the life support center. The air recycling systems in 3 major sections had just shut down. People would start having trouble breathing within hours. Jae-won made his decision. Minho, send a message to Earth. Tell them we have critical system failures and request immediate technical assistance. Make it clear that 50,000 lives are at stake. Sir, are you sure about this? Yunji asked. The other coalition worlds will not understand why we asked such a young species for help with advanced technology. Right now, I do not care. What other worlds think? Jae-won replied. I care about saving the people on this station. Minho began typing the emergency message. The text was simple and direct, just as humans seemed to prefer. It explained the situation without technical details that might confuse them. It asked for help with repairing critical systems. Most importantly, it stressed that time was running out. The message was sent on all emergency frequencies toward the Sol system where humans lived. Now they could only wait and hope that Earth would receive it in time. How long until we get a response? Jae-won asked. If they answer immediately, we should hear back within 18 hours, Minho replied. But sir, even if they want to help, how can they get here fast enough? Earth is 6 days away at maximum hyperspace speed. Jae-won stared at the main screen that showed their position in space. Around them, stars twinkled peacefully, while inside the station, systems continued to fail. He had made a desperate choice, based on hope rather than logic. In a few hours, he would know if that hope was justified. We will find out soon enough, he said quietly. In the meantime, keep working on emergency repairs. Use whatever methods work, even if they are not elegant or sophisticated. The control room crew returned to their tasks with new urgency. Outside, space remained calm and empty. But somewhere in the darkness, a message was traveling toward a small blue planet where a young species was about to prove that sometimes the best solutions come from the most unexpected places. The response from Earth came much faster than anyone expected. Only 14 hours after sending the distress call, Minho received an incoming transmission on the emergency channel. Nexus Prime. This is Earth Central Command, the voice said, in clear galactic standard language. We received your request for technical assistance. The United Human Space Force vessel Determination is already en route to your position. Estimated arrival time is 16 hours. Commander Jae-won stared at the communication display in shock. 16 hours? That is impossible. Earth is 6 days away, even at maximum hyperspace speed. Sir, I am reading their position on long range. Sensors, reported Navigation Officer Sunho. There is definitely a ship approaching our coordinates. It will arrive exactly when they said. Chief Science Officer Yunji frowned as she studied the sensor readings. How can they travel so fast? Their hyperspace technology should be decades behind ours. Maybe we do not know as much about human capabilities as we thought, Jae-won replied. He felt a small spark of hope for the first time in days. What can you tell me about their ship? Sunho checked his instruments again. It is much smaller than our rescue vessels, only 800 meters long. Most coalition repair ships are at least 3 kilometers. I am not sure how such a small vessel can carry enough equipment to help us. The waiting was difficult. Every hour brought new system failures. The exotic matter containment fields continued to weaken. Life support was failing in more sections. People throughout the station were being moved to areas that still had working air and power systems. When the human ship finally arrived, It looked nothing like what anyone expected. Coalition vessels were built for beauty as well as function. They had smooth curves and elegant lines that pleased the eye. The human ship looked purely practical. It was a gray metal box covered with strange bumps and antenna arrays. "This is Commander Boyoung Kim of the UHSV Determination requesting permission to dock," came the transmission. "Permission granted," Jaewon replied. "Bay 7 is the only docking port still fully operational." Captain Do-hyun of the Coalition Defense Force met the human team at the docking bay. He expected to see a few technicians with basic repair tools. Instead, he found himself facing a group of 20 humans, wearing matching dark blue uniforms. They moved with precise coordination as they unloaded equipment from their ship. Commander Boyoung was a woman of medium height with short black hair and alert eyes that seemed to take in everything around her. She approached Do-hyun with confident steps. "Captain, I understand you have some technical difficulties," she said. Her tone suggested this was an interesting puzzle to solve, rather than a desperate emergency. "My team is ready to begin assessment of your systems immediately." "Commander, I should warn you," Do-hyun replied carefully. "Our best engineers from 3 different species have declared these problems impossible to repair. The damage is beyond anything they have seen before." Boyoung smiled slightly. "Captain, humans have learned that impossible usually just means no one has tried the right approach yet. May we examine your systems?" The human engineers spread throughout the station with remarkable efficiency. They did not request detailed technical manuals or computer access. Instead, they looked at everything with their own eyes and touched components with their hands. They carried tools that looked simple compared to the sophisticated equipment used by Coalition engineers. Chief Engineer Ha-jun watched in confusion as Human Engineer Subin examined the exotic matter containment system. The Valtharian repair? Team had spent 2 days analyzing the quantum field generators with advanced scanners. Subin looked at the same equipment for 10 minutes with a simple handheld device. "Your containment field generators are very elegant," Subin told Ha-jun, "but they are also extremely complicated. You are using 17 different energy frequencies to maintain stability. That creates thousands of possible failure points." Thakers. "System was designed by the finest Valtharian engineers," Ha-jun replied defensively. "It represents centuries of technological advancement." "I am sure it does," Subin said politely. "But we can achieve the same result with only 3 energy frequencies plus some mechanical backup systems. It will be more stable and much easier to repair." Ha-jun stared at her. "That is impossible. The mathematical requirements alone would prevent such a simple solution." "Would you like to see our calculations?" Subin asked. She pulled out a small tablet and showed him equations that were unlike anything he had studied. The mathematics were simpler, but somehow more practical than the complex formulas used by Coalition science. Meanwhile, in the computer center, human technician Jin Woo was examining the quantum processors that controlled the station's main systems. The Keth repair specialists had declared these units completely destroyed and irreplaceable. "The quantum matrices have collapsed," explained Keth. Engineer Veltar through his translation device. "These processors require perfect crystalline structures to function. Once damaged, they cannot be restored." Jinwoo nodded as he studied the burned-out components. "You are right that these specific processors cannot be fixed. But we do not need to fix them. We can replace them with hybrid biomechanical units that are actually more stable than the original design." "Biomechanical hybrids?" Veltar asked with confusion. "Such technology does not exist." "It does now," Jinwoo replied cheerfully. "We developed it last year for mining operations in asteroid fields. The biological components can adapt to damage, while the mechanical parts provide reliable processing power, much more practical than trying to maintain perfect crystal structures." Throughout the station, similar conversations were taking place. Human engineers were not trying to restore the original systems to their previous state. Instead, they were installing completely different technology that performed the same functions more reliably. The most puzzling development was the coffee. Commander Boyoung had brought containers of a dark liquid that produced an unusual aroma when heated. She offered cups of this beverage to every coalition officer she met. "What is this substance?" asked Commander Jaewon as he accepted a steaming cup. "Coffee," Boyoung replied. "It is made from ground plant seeds mixed with hot water. The caffeine helps improve focus and mental clarity. Your people look exhausted, and we have found that coffee helps humans think more clearly during stressful situations." Jaewon took a careful sip. The liquid was warm and slightly bitter, but somehow the taste seemed to sharpen his thoughts. The constant worry and fatigue that had clouded his mind for days began to lift slightly. "This is remarkable," he said. "I feel more alert already." "Coffee has been essential to human civilization for hundreds of years," Boyoung explained. "We never undertake complex projects without it. I brought several cases because I suspected we would be working long hours. By the end of the first day, impossible things were happening throughout Nexus Prime. Systems that had been declared beyond repair were not only working again, but functioning better than before. The exotic matter containment fields were stable, for the first time in weeks. Life support was restored to all sections. Even the quantum processors were running more efficiently than their original specifications." "How is this possible?" Yunji asked as she reviewed the status reports. Every single system showed green indicators for the first time since the crisis began. "Humans do not try to build perfect systems," explained Boyoung as she poured more coffee for the exhausted coalition officers. "We build systems that work even when conditions are not perfect. We assume things will break, so we design them to be easily repaired. We expect unexpected problems, so we build in multiple solutions." Jaewon looked around the control room that was now functioning smoothly despite having been on the edge of total failure just hours before. "Commander Kim, how can we ever repay you for this miracle?" "No payment necessary," Boyoung replied with a smile. "Helping people solve problems is what humans do best. Besides, we learned a lot from studying your technology. This has been educational for both our species." As the human team prepared to rest before beginning additional improvements the next day, word of their success was already spreading throughout coalition space. The impossible had become possible, and the galaxy was about to discover that sometimes the most advanced solutions come from the most practical minds. News of the human miracle at Nexus Prime spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within days, every major civilization had received detailed reports about what the humans had accomplished. The reaction was not what Commander Jaewon had hoped for. The first sign of trouble came from the Hegemony, a powerful military alliance that controlled over 200 star systems. Their Supreme Commander Taejin had once served in the coalition military before leaving to join the more aggressive Hegemony forces. He knew exactly what the human success meant for galactic power structures. "The humans have changed everything," Taejin told the Hegemony War Council from his massive command ship. "For centuries, we have maintained superiority through advanced technology. Our weapons, our ships, our systems are all more sophisticated than anything the Coalition possesses. But humans do not compete with sophistication. They compete with effectiveness." The War Council chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. The Hegemony had spent generations building their military strength around technological advantages that humans could apparently match or exceed with simpler methods. "What do you recommend, Supreme Commander?" asked General Wu Jin, leader of the Hegemony's largest fleet. "We cannot allow the Coalition to gain access to widespread human engineering," Taejin replied firmly. "If every Coalition world begins using human technology, our military superiority becomes meaningless. We must act before this human influence spreads further." Back on Nexus Prime, Commander Boyoung was receiving urgent communications from Earth. The human government had detected military movements throughout Hegemony space. Long-range sensors showed fleets gathering at key strategic positions. "Commander Kim," came the transmission from Earth Central Command. "Intelligence reports suggest The hegemony is preparing military action in response to your mission. We are prepared to recall all human personnel immediately to avoid causing an interstellar war. Boyoung shared this message with Commander Jaewon in his newly repaired command center. The station was now running better than it ever had, but the political situation was becoming dangerous. Commander, my government does not want to be responsible for starting a galactic conflict, Boyoung explained. We came here to help with repairs, not to disrupt the balance of power. Jaewon stared at the reports flowing across his screens. The hegemony was demanding that the coalition expel all humans and surrender any technology that had been modified by human engineers. The threat was clear: comply or face military action. The Coalition Council is meeting in emergency session, Jaewon told Boyoung. Half our members want to accept the hegemony demands to preserve peace. The other half recognize that human innovations could transform our entire civilization. Chief Science Officer Yoonji entered the command center with more troubling news. Sir, I just received reports from 17 different worlds. They are all requesting human technical assistance for various problems. Word of what happened here has created enormous interest in human engineering methods. That is exactly what the hegemony fears, Jaewon realized. They see humans not as a single threat, but as the beginning of a technological revolution that could change everything. FI's decision was made for them when long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures approaching Coalition space. The hegemony fleet was moving toward their border with overwhelming force. Intelligence reports counted over 3,000 warships heading directly for Coalition territory. They have given us 6 weeks before they reach our first defensive positions, reported Communications Officer Minho. The hegemony message is simple: remove all human influence from Coalition space or face total war. Commander Boyoung gathered her team in the station's main conference room. The 20 human engineers had accomplished miracles with Nexus Prime, but now they faced a choice between leaving their new friends or staying and causing a war that could destroy millions of lives. Earth Command has ordered us to withdraw, Boyoung announced to her crew. They believe our presence is causing more harm than good. Engineer Subin spoke up first. Commander, if we leave now, everything we have accomplished will be undone. The hegemony will force the coalition to remove all our improvements. These people will be back where they started. Worse than where they started, added technician Jin Woo. The hegemony will make sure the coalition never asks for human help again. They will isolate humanity to prevent this kind of technological exchange. Boyoung understood their concerns, but the larger picture was frightening. The hegemony has 3,000 advanced warships. The coalition military has grown weak during decades of peace. This would not be a fair fight. What if we could change those odds? Asked Engineer Minji quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. She was the youngest member of the human team, but also one of the most innovative. The coalition has 800 ships, Minji continued. They are individually inferior to hegemony vessels, but what if they were not? What if we could upgrade coalition military technology the same way we upgraded this station? The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. Upgrading civilian systems was one thing. Military applications were entirely different and far more dangerous. That would be an act of war, Boyoung said slowly. Earth would never approve such direct military involvement. Not if Earth does not know about it, Subin suggested. We could claim we were unable to evacuate before the fighting started. Once the conflict begins, helping the coalition defend themselves becomes a matter of survival. Boyoung thought about her orders from Earth Command. Her government wanted to avoid responsibility for starting an interstellar war, but they had not specifically ordered her to avoid helping the coalition defend themselves if war became unavoidable. The hegemony has already decided to attack, she realized. Whether we help or not, they will invade coalition space to prevent human influence from spreading. Our presence did not cause this war. It only gave the hegemony a reason to start something they already wanted to do. The debate continued for hours. but the conclusion was inevitable. The human team had seen what their technology could accomplish when combined with coalition systems. They had also seen the potential for their engineering principles to transform galactic civilization. Allowing the hegemony to crush that potential would be a tragedy for everyone. Very well, Boyung announced. We will request permission to help upgrade coalition defense systems. We cannot stop the hegemony from attacking, but we can make sure the coalition is ready for them. Commander Jaewon received their proposal with mixed emotions. The human offer could save his civilization, but it would also commit them to a war that seemed impossible to win. Commander Kim, he said finally, if we accept your help, there will be no turning back. The hegemony will never forgive either of us. Sometimes the right choice is not the safe choice, Boyung replied. Besides, I have a feeling this war might not go the way the hegemony expects. The transformation began immediately. Within hours of accepting the human offer, Nexus Prime became the center of the most intensive military upgrade program in galactic history. Human engineering teams arrived from Earth on fast courier ships, bringing plans and equipment that would revolutionize coalition defense capabilities. Engineer Minji worked alongside coalition technician Kang Hyun in the station's main fabrication facility. They were redesigning weapon systems that had remained unchanged for centuries. Your energy weapons are beautiful, Minji admitted as she examined a coalition plasma cannon. The energy efficiency is remarkable, and the targeting systems are incredibly precise. But they have a serious weakness. Kang Hyun looked confused. These weapons have proven effective in every conflict for the past 300 years. What weakness could you possibly find? Minji activated her portable computer and showed him a detailed analysis. Your plasma cannons require 17 different subsystems to function correctly. If any one of those systems fails, the entire weapon becomes useless. They also need constant maintenance and specialized repair facilities. That is the price of advanced technology, Kang Hyun replied. Superior performance requires complex systems. Does it? Minji asked. She pulled up. Plans for human-designed weapons. Our projectile systems are much simpler. They use chemical explosives to launch metal projectiles at very high speeds. Crude by your standards, but they work even when everything else fails. The human approach to military technology was fundamentally different from galactic standards. Where coalition engineers had spent centuries perfecting elegant energy weapons, humans had developed brutal efficiency. Their systems were designed to function in the worst possible conditions with minimal maintenance. We are not trying to replace your technology, explained Chief Engineer Hajun as he reviewed the human proposals. We want to combine the best of both approaches. Your energy weapons for precision tasks, our projectile systems for reliability. The hybrid weapon systems that emerged from this collaboration were unlike anything seen before in galactic warfare. Coalition ships would carry energy weapons for their accuracy and power, backed up by human-designed projectile systems that would continue fighting even if the primary systems failed. But weapons were only part of the equation. Human engineer Subin was working with coalition designers to completely redesign their defensive systems. Traditional coalition shields were powerful, but fragile. They could absorb enormous amounts of energy, but once overloaded, they collapsed completely. Your shields are like a soap bubble, Subin explained to the coalition engineering team. Very effective until something pops them. Then you have nothing. The human solution was layered defense. Energy shields provided the first line of protection, but behind them were physical armor plates that could absorb impacts even after the shields failed. Emergency barrier systems could be activated manually if the main defenses were destroyed. This approach requires much more mass and complexity, observed coalition engineer Young Ho. Our ships will be heavier and less maneuverable. But they will survive battles that would destroy the current designs, Subin countered. Speed means nothing if you explode after the first hit. The most revolutionary changes came in command and control systems. Coalition military doctrine had always relied on centralized coordination. Fleet commanders made decisions that were transmitted to individual ships through complex communication networks. It was elegant and efficient. When everything worked perfectly, humans had learned to expect that nothing worked perfectly in combat. "Your command system has a fatal flaw," explained human tactical advisor Lieutenant Seung-yun to Coalition Admiral Dong-ho. "If communication with Fleet Command is disrupted, your individual ships do not know how to adapt to changing conditions." "Our communication systems are extremely reliable," Admiral Dong-ho protested. "We have backup networks and emergency protocols." "What happens when the enemy targets your command ship first?" Seung-yun asked. "What happens when they jam your communications? What happens when battle conditions change faster than orders can be transmitted?" The human solution was distributed command authority. Every ship captain would have the training and authority to make tactical decisions without waiting for orders. Standard procedures would provide basic coordination, but individual commanders could adapt to local conditions as needed. "This sounds like chaos," Admiral Dong-ho said with concern. "How do you coordinate fleet actions without central control?" "You train your people well and trust them to do their jobs," Seung-hyun replied simply. "Humans learned long ago that rigid command structures break under combat stress. Flexible systems bend but do not break." The ship modifications themselves were equally dramatic. Coalition vessels were marvels of engineering efficiency. Every system was perfectly integrated with every other system. The result was beautiful, but also fragile. Damage to one area could cascade through the entire ship. Human designs emphasized modularity. Critical systems were isolated from each other so that damage in one area would not affect other functions. Backup systems were completely separate from primary systems. Emergency repairs could be made by crew members using basic tools rather than specialized equipment. "Your ships will look different," admitted human designer Jisoo as she showed the modified plans to coalition shipbuilders. "They will not have the elegant lines of current vessels, but they will continue fighting even after sustaining damage that would cripple traditional designs." The timeline was brutal. 6 weeks to modify. 800 ships using principles that challenged thousands of years of galactic engineering tradition. Human teams worked around the clock alongside coalition engineers who were learning entirely new approaches to technology. Coffee became essential fuel for the massive project. Human supply ships brought thousands of containers of the dark beverage. That seemed to help everyone think more clearly during the long work sessions. Coalition engineers who had never heard of caffeine became devoted converts. "I do not understand how we accomplished anything before coffee," admitted Chief Engineer Ha-jun during one particularly intense planning session. "This substance seems to make impossible schedules merely difficult." "Coffee is the secret ingredient in all human achievements," joked Commander Bo-young as she reviewed progress reports. "We would probably still be living in caves without it." The hegemony was not idle during these preparations. Intelligence reports showed their fleet conducting training exercises with increasing intensity. Supreme Commander Taejin was clearly planning for a quick, decisive victory that would end the conflict before human influence could spread further. "They expect to face the same coalition military they have always known," observed Commander Jae-won as he studied enemy fleet movements. "Predictable tactics, fragile ships, centralized command structures that can be disrupted with focused attacks. They are going to be surprised," replied Bo-young with confidence. "The coalition fleet they encounter will be unlike anything in galactic history. It will combine the best of your technology with the reliability of human engineering." As the deadline approached, coalition shipyards worked at maximum capacity. Vessels that had served for decades were torn apart and rebuilt with hybrid technology. Crews trained with new weapons and tactics. Supply lines were established to support the distributed command structure that would allow individual ships to operate independently. The results were impressive, but untested. Computer simulations suggested that the modified coalition fleet would perform far better than the original designs. But simulations were not the same as actual combat against an enemy that had never lost a major battle. "In 2 days, we will discover if our theories are correct," Admiral Dong Ho told the assembled fleet commanders. "The hegemony believes they are attacking the same coalition they have always known. We will show them how wrong they are." The human, engineering teams prepared for their own role in the coming battle. They would serve as technical advisors aboard coalition ships, helping crews adapt to their new systems during combat. It was a dangerous assignment, but they had come too far to abandon their new allies now. "Whatever happens," Commander Boyoung announced to her people, "we have given the coalition the best technology and training we could provide. The rest is up to them and us working together." The stage was set for a battle that would determine whether human innovations could overcome centuries of hegemony military superiority. The galaxy was about to discover that sometimes the most advanced weapons are no match for the most practical ones. The hegemony fleet arrived exactly when their intelligence reports predicted. 3,000 warships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of coalition territory in perfect formation. Supreme Commander Tae-jin stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching his forces deploy with satisfaction. "Coalition fleet detected," reported his tactical officer. 800 vessels holding position near the Kepler-7 system. They are maintaining their usual defensive formation. Tae-jin smiled coldly. He had fought coalition forces many times during border skirmishes. Their tactics were predictable, their command structure was rigid, and their ships were built for elegance rather than combat effectiveness. This battle would be over quickly. "Signal the fleet," he commanded. "Attack formation Gamma. Concentrate firepower on their command ships first. Once we disrupt their coordination, the remaining vessels will surrender or flee." The hegemony fleet moved forward with practiced precision. Their ships were larger and more powerful than anything the coalition possessed. Advanced energy weapons could punch through coalition shields with ease. Superior speed and maneuverability had always allowed them to dictate the terms of engagement. On the coalition flagship Harmony, Admiral Dong Ho watched the approaching enemy with nervous anticipation. His fleet looked the same from the outside, but everything had changed on the inside. Human advisors were stationed on every bridge, ready to help crews adapt to their new capabilities. "Enemy fleet entering weapons range in 30 minutes, reported his tactical officer. "Signal all ships," Admiral Dong Ho commanded. "Remember your training. Fight smart, not just hard. Use every advantage we have given you." Lieutenant Sung Yun stood beside the Admiral's command chair. The human tactical advisor had studied hegemony battle records for weeks, learning their strengths and identifying their weaknesses. "Admiral, they are deploying exactly as we expected," Sung Yun said quietly. "Classic hegemony doctrine. Overwhelming. Force at key points while superior mobility prevents effective counterattacks." "Will our modifications be enough?" Admiral Dong Ho asked. "We are about to find out," Sung Yun replied, with confidence he hoped he actually felt. The battle began as every previous coalition hegemony engagement had started. Hegemony ships opened fire with devastating energy barrages aimed at coalition command vessels. Their weapons struck with expected accuracy and power. Then something unprecedented happened. The coalition ships did not explode. Supreme Commander Tae-jin stared at his tactical display in confusion. His weapons had scored direct hits on multiple coalition vessels. Energy readings confirmed that their shields had been overloaded and collapsed, yet the ships continued to fight. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Those ships should have been destroyed." His science officer checked the sensor readings twice before responding. "Sir, their shield failures appear to have activated secondary defensive systems we have never encountered before. Some kind of physical armor is absorbing our weapon impacts." On the coalition ship Resilience, Captain Hyunwoo felt his vessel shake under heavy enemy fire. Warning lights flashed as the energy shields failed exactly as expected. But instead of dying, his ship continued to fight. "Primary shields down," reported his weapons officer. "Armor plating is holding, Secondary systems are online. Human engineer. Minji, stationed on the bridge as technical advisor, checked her damage control screens. Captain, we have taken significant damage, but all critical systems remain functional. Our backup weapons are ready to fire. This was the moment of truth. Captain Hyunwoo had trained for weeks with the new systems, but training was not the same as actual combat. He made the decision that would define the entire battle. Instead of following traditional coalition doctrine and withdrawing to reform with the main fleet, he pressed his attack. All weapons, continuous fire, he commanded. Navigation, attack pattern Delta. Engineering, prepare for emergency maneuvers. The Resilience charged directly into the middle of 3 hegemony ships that had been expecting an easy victory. Its hybrid weapon systems opened fire with devastating effect. Energy weapons struck with coalition precision, while projectile systems hammered enemy hulls with human reliability. The hegemony ships found themselves facing weapons they did not understand. Their shields were designed to deflect energy attacks, but the metal projectiles from human-designed systems punched through their defenses with brutal effectiveness. Worse, when they damaged the coalition ship's energy weapons, the projectile systems continued firing. Impossible, breathed Supreme Commander Tae-jin as he watched his tactical display. A single coalition vessel was engaging 3 of his ships simultaneously and winning. How are they maintaining combat effectiveness with that much damage? The answer was spreading throughout the battle space. Coalition ships that should have been destroyed after the first exchange were adapting to damage and continuing to fight. Human-designed redundant systems activated when primary systems failed. Modular designs allowed damaged sections to be isolated, while healthy areas maintained full combat capability. More importantly, coalition captains were no longer waiting for orders from Fleet Command. The distributed command structure allowed them to respond to local conditions immediately. When traditional tactics failed, they improvised. When standard formations were disrupted, they created new ones on the spot. Captain Hyunwoo demonstrated this flexibility when his navigation systems were damaged by enemy fire. Instead of withdrawing for repairs, he used the ship's mechanical backup controls to perform maneuvers that his damaged computer systems could not calculate. Engineering reports that our navigation computer is offline, his tactical officer announced. Then, we navigate manually, Hyunwoo replied calmly. Helmsmen, dead reckoning approach. Weapons, prepare for close-range engagement. The Resilience closed to point-blank range with the nearest hegemony ship and unleashed everything it had. Energy weapons designed for long-range precision became devastating at close distance. Projectile systems that were crude by galactic standards proved brutally effective when fired from mere kilometers away. The hegemony vessel exploded in a brilliant fireball. Across the battle space, similar scenes were playing out. Coalition ships were demonstrating capabilities that the hegemony had never encountered. They absorbed damage that should have been fatal and continued fighting. They adapted to changing conditions without waiting for orders. Most importantly, they were winning. The turning point came when human electronic warfare systems activated. These were capabilities that the hegemony did not even know existed. Coalition ships began transmitting computer viruses and jamming signals that disrupted hegemony systems in ways their designers had never anticipated. Sir, we are losing communication with the Second Fleet, reported the hegemony communications officer. Their navigation systems are reporting false positions. Weapon targeting computers are malfunctioning. Supreme Commander Tae-jin realized, with growing horror, that his technological superiority was meaningless against an enemy that fought by completely different rules. His elegant, sophisticated systems were being defeated by crude, practical alternatives that worked even under the worst conditions. All ships withdraw to minimum safe distance, he ordered. Reform and assess damage. But the coalition fleet did not allow an orderly withdrawal. Individual ship captains pressed their attacks, pursuing damaged hegemony vessels and preventing them from regrouping. The rigid hegemony formation collapsed into chaos as coalition ships exploited every advantage their new technology provided. Admiral Dong Ho watched his tactical display with amazement. The battle that should have been a massacre was turning into a rout. His outnumbered fleet was systematically destroying the most powerful military force in the galaxy. "Lieutenant Sung Yun," he said to his human advisor, "your people have given us a miracle." "No, sir," Sung Yun replied with a smile. "We just gave you better tools. You and your crews are the ones performing the miracle." The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the hegemony fleet was in full retreat. Over 800 of their ships had been destroyed or damaged beyond repair. The coalition had lost fewer than 100 vessels, and most of those were repairable, using the modular design principles that humans had introduced. Supreme Commander Taejin stared at the tactical summary in disbelief. His forces had been decisively defeated by an enemy they had considered technologically inferior. The implications were staggering. The galaxy had just learned that advanced technology meant nothing without practical application. Sophistication was useless without reliability. Perfection was meaningless without adaptability. The age of hegemony dominance was over. The age of human coalition cooperation had begun. 6 months after the battle that changed galactic history, Nexus Prime had been transformed into something unprecedented. The research station now served as the first human coalition technology exchange, where representatives from hundreds of worlds came to learn about the engineering principles that had defeated the mighty hegemony fleet. Commander Jae-won, now serving as director of the exchange, walked through corridors filled with beings from dozens of different species. Valtharian crystal engineers worked alongside human mechanics. Keth precision specialists learned from human improvisation experts. Even former hegemony officers had arrived seeking to understand how their technological superiority had been so decisively overcome. The most visible change was the presence of coffee shops throughout the station. What had begun as a simple human beverage had become the symbol of innovation and cooperation. The aromatic drink seemed to encourage the kind of creative thinking that formal diplomatic meetings had never achieved. Dr. Young-ho from Earth's Technical Mission addressed a packed auditorium filled with delegates from across the galaxy. Behind him, screens displayed examples of hybrid technology that combined human practicality with alien sophistication. "You have all achieved remarkable technological advancement through specialization and refinement," he told the assembled representatives. "Your energy weapons are more powerful than anything humans have built. Your computer systems are faster and more precise than our best designs. Your ships are more elegant and efficient than our crude metal boxes." The audience listened intently, wondering where this speech was leading. "But you have also created systems so complex that they have become fragile," Dr. Young-ho continued. "You have pursued perfection at the cost of reliability. You have built technology that only works under ideal conditions. Humans took a different approach. We built technology that works under the worst possible conditions." He activated a holographic display showing coalition ships from before and after human modifications. "We did not make your technology less advanced. We made it more practical. We added backup systems, redundant components, and modular designs that allow repairs under combat conditions." The questions that followed revealed how profoundly the battle had shaken established thinking throughout the galaxy. "How can simple projectile weapons be more effective than advanced energy systems?" asked a Morphid scientist. "They are not more effective," Dr. Young-ho replied. "They are more reliable. Energy weapons are superior for precision tasks. But when they fail, you have nothing. Projectile weapons continue working even when everything else breaks down." A Valtharian engineer raised another question. "Your distributed command structure seems chaotic compared to our centralized coordination. How do you maintain unit cohesion?" "You train your people well and trust them to make good decisions," Dr. Young-ho answered. "Centralized command works perfectly until communications fail or commanders are killed. Distributed authority means the fleet keeps fighting even when individual ships are isolated." The technology exchange was producing results that amazed everyone involved. Mining operations that had been abandoned due to technical challenges were now profitable using hybrid human-alien technology. Exploration missions could venture into dangerous regions that had previously been impossible to reach. Even basic manufacturing had improved by incorporating human reliability principles with alien efficiency. But the most significant changes were happening within the hegemony itself. The military defeat had triggered political upheaval throughout their territory. Supreme Commander Tajin, stripped of his position after the disaster, had quietly requested asylum on Earth. The intelligence he provided about other potential threats had proven invaluable. The new hegemony leadership, led by Admiral Min Seok, had opened diplomatic channels with both the Coalition and Earth. Their first message was simple: we wish to learn. The old hegemony believed that technological superiority guaranteed victory, Admiral Min Seok explained during his first visit to the technology exchange. We learned that practical application matters more than theoretical advancement. We would like to request our own technology sharing agreements. Commander Bo Young, who had triggered this galactic revolution with a simple repair mission, found herself coordinating technology transfers to 47 different civilizations. Each species brought their own strengths to combine with human engineering principles. 6 months ago, we were just trying to fix a broken space station, she told her engineering team during their weekly meeting. Now we are rebuilding galactic civilization. The results were visible throughout known space. Ships using hybrid technology were more reliable and effective than anything built before. Space stations incorporated the best features of multiple species while maintaining human-style redundancy and modularity. Even personal devices had improved by combining alien sophistication with human durability. The coffee shops had become informal laboratories where beings from different worlds shared ideas and approaches to problem-solving. Traditional diplomatic protocols had given way to casual conversations over steaming cups of the earth beverage that seemed to stimulate creativity. I never realized how much we had isolated ourselves, admitted Chief Science Officer Yunji as she reviewed reports from across Coalition space. Each species had developed along separate technological paths. Humans showed us that combining different approaches produces better results than any single method. The transformation was not without challenges. Some worlds resisted the changes, preferring their traditional methods to human innovations. Others tried to implement human technology without understanding the principles behind it. The technology exchange had become as much about education as engineering. You cannot simply copy human designs, Dr. Young-ho explained to a group of frustrated Keth engineers. You must understand why we build things the way we do. Redundancy, modularity, and repairability are not just features. They are philosophies of engineering. The first human-designed starships built in Coalition shipyards began their maiden voyages during this period. These vessels incorporated lessons learned from dozens of different species while maintaining the reliability and adaptability that characterized human engineering. They represented something entirely new in galactic civilization. Captain Do Yun commanded one of these hybrid vessels on its first deep space mission. The ship combined Valtharian energy systems with human backup power. It used Keth navigation computers supported by human mechanical controls. Its weapons mixed the precision of Coalition energy weapons with the reliability of human projectile systems. This ship represents the future of galactic technology, he reported back to Nexus Prime. It is more capable than any single species could have built alone. As the first year of the new era concluded, representatives from over 300 worlds had visited the technology exchange. The principles of practical engineering had spread to every corner of known space. The galaxy had rediscovered something it had lost during millennia of specialization: the value of cooperation and shared innovation. Commander Jae-won stood in the main observation lounge of Nexus Prime, looking out at the stars where human and Alien ships traveled together on missions that would have been impossible before the great collaboration began. The aroma of coffee drifted from the nearby cafe where beings from dozens of worlds continued to share ideas and solutions. A year ago, we sent a desperate message asking for simple repairs, he reflected. The humans sent back superior technology, better coffee, and a completely new way of thinking about the challenges we face. The coffee shops throughout the station were full of conversation and laughter. Beings who had never interacted before were working together on projects that benefited everyone. The galaxy had learned that the best solutions often come from the most unexpected sources, and throughout known space, the aroma of brewing coffee had become the symbol of innovation, cooperation, and the revolutionary idea that any problem could be solved with enough creativity, determination, and perhaps a good cup of coffee to fuel the effort. The humans had asked for nothing in return for their help except the opportunity to learn from other species. What they had given in return was a new galactic civilization built on practical innovation and mutual cooperation. The age of isolated technological development was over. The age of shared discovery had begun.